You know them, you see them everywhere, hopping across lawns, singing from the rooftops, but the common blackbird, which is actually the UK's fourth most common garden bird, is hiding some pretty incredible secrets. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the surprisingly complex life of this very familiar bird. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Do you think all blackbirds are, black? If you said yes, hey, you're not alone. But the truth is actually a little more colorful than that. All right, so to really dig into that question, we first need to know who we're actually looking at. Because believe it or not, identifying a blackbird isn't always as simple as it sounds. Yeah, so the name blackbird is, well, it's really only accurate for the males. They're the ones with that classic shiny jet black look and that super bright orange beak and eye ring. The females, they're actually a more subtle dark brown with a duller beak. And the young ones, the juveniles, they have this mottled, speckled look, which is perfect camouflage to help them hide from predators. And they're surprisingly light, only about 100 grams, with a wingspan of up to 38 centimeters. But what really gives them away is how they move. They're hoppers, not runners, and they often strike this very specific pose. You've probably seen it. Wings kind of droop down, tail cocked right up in the air as they check out their surroundings.
So how does such a common bird manage to thrive all year round? Well, it all comes down to one thing. They are absolute masters of adaptation.
Their secret weapon is pretty simple, really. They're omnivores, and being able to eat just about anything is the absolute key to their success, no matter what the season. So in the spring and summer, when the ground's nice and soft, they are expert hunters. Their diet is just packed with protein from worms and all sorts of invertebrates. And get this, they have this weirdly fussy habit of wiping insects on the ground to clean off the dirt before they eat them. Pretty picky for a garden bird, right? But as autumn and winter roll in, the ground gets hard and that main food source just vanishes. So what do? They pivot. Their diet switches almost entirely to berries and fruits, which lets them do just fine even when the weather gets really nasty. Their whole attitude changes with the seasons, too. During the tough winter months, they're surprisingly chill, letting other birds pass through their turf without much of a fight. But the second springtime hits, everything changes. They do a complete 180 and become incredibly aggressive, fighting off any rival blackbirds. It's all about protecting those resources for the family. And that seasonal shift, that fierce defense of their territory, it all builds towards one thing, the absolute core of a blackbird's life, raising the next generation. When they start nesting is completely at the mercy of the weather. If it's a mild year, they might get going as early as February. But a cold spring can push everything back to late March or even April. It's interesting though, urban blackbirds often get an earlier start, probably because of the warmer city temperatures and all the artificial lights. The division of labor here is just fascinating. The female builds that little cup-shaped nest all by herself, and she's the one who incubates the 3 to 5 speckled blue eggs. But as soon as those chicks hatch, it's all hands on deck. Both parents work around the clock, and the chicks grow so fast they're ready to leave the nest in about 2 weeks. But leaving the nest, that's not the end of the story. This next part is actually incredibly dangerous. See, the fledglings can't really fly yet. They spend several days just hopping around on the ground, figuring things out. And that makes them super vulnerable. This is actually when a lot of well-meaning people find them and mistakenly rescue them, thinking they're hurt, when really they're just going through a totally natural, if a little scary, phase of life. And once the babies are out of the nest, the parenting strategy makes another smart shift. The male takes over most of the feeding duties for these young fledglings. Why? Well, that frees up the female to get ready for the next clutch of eggs. And these guys are prolific. They can raise 3, sometimes even 4 broods in just one season. Okay, so this all sounds like a perfect, devoted little family, right? Mating for life, raising all these broods together. Well, it turns out the blackbird is hiding a pretty surprising secret life. I mean, from the outside, they look like the picture of monogamy. They stick together, they work as a team, but are they really faithful partners for life? Well, the science says it's complicated. Genetic studies have found that even though a pair stays together, a staggering 17% of the chicks in a nest are not actually fathered by the male who's raising them. It's a strategy that biologists call extra-pair paternity, and it's basically a way to boost the genetic diversity of the species. So with all this family drama and all the dangers they face, how are blackbirds actually doing as a species? Let's zoom out a bit and look at the big picture.
the real numbers game of survival. Well, despite all the challenges, their amazing adaptability has really paid off. The UK's breeding population is at an incredibly healthy 5 million pairs. That's a lot of birds. But that number just explodes in the winter. It triples to about 15 million individual birds. And that's because the UK is a relatively warm winter getaway for blackbirds migrating south from much colder places like Scandinavia. But make no mistake, life is tough out there. The odds are really stacked against them. Only about 1 in every 3 nests actually manages to produce fledged young. And that huge failure rate? That's exactly why their strategy of raising so many broods each year is absolutely essential for the species to survive. So if a bird makes it through all those dangerous early stages, its average life expectancy is about 3.4 years. But then you get the legends, the outliers. The oldest blackbird ever recorded lived for an unbelievable 20 years and 3 months. Just incredible. So, when you put it all together, it tells you that even though they might be everywhere you look, the 4th most common garden bird is, well, it's anything but common. They are tough, they are clever, and they lead far more dramatic lives than we ever give them credit for. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other ordinary creature living right under our noses might be hiding its own extraordinary secret?